Good morning, everybody. We're not expecting Councilmember Mumm, but I was kind of hoping for Councilmember Burke. But I think we'll go ahead and get started. So let me call to order today's City Council study session. We've got a recurring agenda item from Sarah Nuss on a COVID update. And then we have a presentation from several people on housing development and homeownership. So, Sarah, I'll turn it over to you. What's the latest that we should know?
Good morning, everyone. Your emergency manager here to report some data and to give some updates on the COVID vaccine-related information. So for the previous week, that's going to be from March 21st to March 27th, we had 422 new cases in our county, a daily average of 60 new cases per day. This is an increase, but a steady increase, nothing breaking our barrier of the goal of 200 per 100,000. For the age groups that we're seeing right now, we're seeing the biggest peak in the age of 20 to 29. That's 26% of our new cases for that week. There's also 17% among the ages of 10 to 19, and another 17% among the ages of 30 to 39. So I'm just going to share some information from Dr. Velasquez about this. We need to keep messaging for our younger folks to keep wearing masks, get vaccinated, keep your social distancing. He said with Easter coming up, it's okay to get together, especially if you can lean in on being outside, and keeping your distance and doing things as safely as you can. But in order for us to stay open and continue moving forward through the phases set by the governor and state Department of Health, keep urging caution in that and being smart about how we congregate. Washington State has fully vaccinated about 1 million people. As far as healthcare system readiness, our total ICU census is at about 87%. So we have capacity. The healthcare system is able, without surging or bringing in extra staff, to manage our hospitalizations at this time. As far as vaccinations that have been given, our county has given a total of 197,841 vaccine doses. But of fully vaccinated people, we've vaccinated approximately 14.68% of our population. So that's good news. As far as our isolation facilities go, the hotel, My Place Hotel, is at 19% capacity, so lots of room to continue isolating there. And the Immaculate Heart Retreat Center is also at 20%, so lots of room there. SRHD is planning to fold down our isolation and quarantine facilities here at the end of April, based on the need and the funding requirement that FEMA only reimburses for 75% of that cost. So if we are looking to keep that open, we will have to talk together as a region about how we plan to pay for that ongoing need. As far as cases by race, the bulk continue to be among the white and Caucasian population with 74% of the cases. We have other or unknown race being 9%. Hispanic is 7%, which is up from 4% last week. Pacific Islander is 1%. Black is 4%. American Indian is 1%. And Asian is 4%. As I mentioned earlier, our rate per 100,000 of newly diagnosed cases during the past 2 weeks is 157, which is well below that 200. It's good news. As for hospitalizations, we have 14 new hospitalizations this week, a total of 58 at this time. That could ebb and flow a few points. This report was created a few days ago. We had 6 new deaths this week compared to 2 last week. And of concern is that 3 of these deaths are folks in their 40s. 1 is someone in their 50s, 1 someone in their 70s, and 1 someone in their 80s. Our average percent of positive tests is at 4.2%, which is down from last week. So that's good. We know we do lots and lots of tests, but there are more negative tests than positive tests. All right, moving on to the Tuesday's recovery call. As of March 31st, yesterday, 2 new phases were made eligible under the state's vaccine plan, and that was Phase 1B, Tier 1B3 and 1B4, which includes, I'm going to have to read off my screen here. Now it added are people aged 16 and above with 2 or more comorbidities or underlying conditions, as well as people, staff, and volunteers in congregate facilities such as correctional facilities, group homes, settings where people are experiencing homelessness or receive homelessness-based services, and all workers in restaurants, food services, construction, and manufacturing. So the governor announced yesterday that starting on April 15th, instead of May 1st, all adults age 16 and above will be eligible to get a vaccine. And so with that bump up of 2 weeks, which is great news for us, the Arena wanted to report that they have many appointments available, our Spokane Arena Mass Vaccination Clinic. They're having some challenges, and the vaccine appointments during the week are not being uptaken as much as they'd like. And so if we want to continue in our region to maintain the vaccination allocations that we're given from the state, we need to try our best to fill those appointments and keep a steady flow of vaccinations going. As far as getting a vaccine, Phase Finder, the tool that WADOH required for you to go through the prompts and determine if you were eligible, is no longer required as of yesterday. So anybody that is eligible up until April 15th, and then obviously further, can just go on the website at WADOH and look for an appointment anywhere, and you don't have to go through those phases. Additionally, if you are not, inclined to the internet or don't have access, you can call the COVID hotline, and they are able to link you to an available appointment either at the clinic, the Mass Arena Clinic, or at any of our pharmacies or with your primary care physician. And I'm just going to repeat that hotline for those of you listening. It's 1-800-525-0127. So that's 1-800-525-0127. Finally, in our long-term care facilities, I'm so happy to report that for the second or possibly even third week in a row, we have no new outbreaks in our long-term care facilities. There are currently 11 ongoing outbreaks that are being managed.
Sarah, I have a question for you. The mayor announced today at our meeting that she signed on to a letter to the federal administration requesting that they allocate their vaccines directly to the city instead of the county. And I'm just wondering if there is a plan or what's the outline of how we as a city would then distribute those vaccines if the administration took up the mayor's request.
Yeah, so that's a decision actually made by Washington State Department of Health, not the federal government. And realistically, if we were to receive vaccines directly as a municipality, it would likely need to be done under the guise of a medical officer, which we don't necessarily have at the city. So we would have to work with SRHD or our fire department with their medical officer to find out how we could receive those vaccines directly. And, a part of that is, can we store it? Do we have ultra cold storage? There's a lot of reporting that goes along with pushing up to the state at a very timely, 24-hour turnaround process. So that's certainly going to be part of the report that I'm drafting right now for everybody to review of what the role of the city could be.
Great. Councilmember Cathcart.
Yeah, Sarah, thanks for the update. I'm wondering, do you happen to know how the word is getting out about those available appointments? I just wonder if there's not a sense from folks that there are no appointments available, so maybe they're not pursuing those, or maybe they're during the day and people are working. Do we have evening appointment availability during the week? Just wondering what you know.
Yeah, so I know our communications marketing team has been putting out a lot of information via our external communications. Also on our the emergency management website for the city, we have that. But as far as, pointing out directly, hey, folks aren't taking up these vaccines, go make an appointment if you're eligible. I don't think that's been pushed as much because we've only been made aware for the last 2 weeks or so about that. So, always open opportunities for us to educate the public and provide that information to them. And I believe the Arena Clinic is open. I'm not going to actually say because I'm not sure, but I know they're open till at least 6 p.m.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Councilmember Kinnear.
Thanks. To Councilmember Cathcart's point, I too don't think that the word's getting out, but I want to be cognizant of the fact that not everybody has connectivity and can get on a website or Facebook or any social media, and so we have to make sure that we're pushing out the information to our local TV stations. Most people have a television and are able to process that information that way. So I would urge you to push as hard as you can to make sure, there goes my clock, to make sure that the word's getting out in multiple ways.
That's a wonderful suggestion. I will definitely be working with Brian Coddington to, push that information on behalf of the Arena, who reached out to us directly to start pushing that messaging. So we'll get that done. Great suggestion.
Councilmember Wilkerson.
Thank you. I will just comment that the success in the communities of color has been most effective because they vaccinate on the weekends. And so therefore, that makes a significant difference, I think. And I don't think the arena does weekends.
The arena does do weekends.
Okay.
Unfortunately, those appointments are just booking out quicker because people have more time. I'm talking with them right now about being able to expand to have to offer more appointments on the weekends, and we're working through those logistics with the Guard.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments for Sarah? All right. Sarah, I really appreciate your coming every week and giving us the update. I think it really closes the loop in a good way. And but we're going to give you a break next week. We're not meeting next week at this time. So just get it all figured out by the 15th. Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone. All right. I'm going to turn it over to Melissa Morrison. She's got some speakers here today. So, Melissa, I'll let you tee up the purpose of the presentation and then just facilitate your speakers. And Melissa can call on council members with questions. And I'll just wait till we're done and I'll wrap it up at the end.
Thank you. So we put together this presentation as a way to help educate council and staff on the costs associated with development, which can help inform some of the decisions that will be made on spending, especially funds around the affordable housing. So today we're going to be focusing on the home ownership side. So this will be the cost associated with acquiring, rehabbing, building new housing, aligning resources, talking about code requirements, to hopefully get a clear understanding of the housing cost and where we can look at cost expectations. So we have 3 different people here to present today. We have Michelle Gerardo from Habitat for Humanity, and then Dietrich Schmitz from the Washington State Housing Finance Commission, and as well as Isaiah Payne from the Home Builders Association. So if Dietrich wants to get started from the Washington State Housing Finance Commission, we can kind of discuss, and then hopefully we'll have some PowerPoints that we can share afterwards for council members, and any questions, we'll have lots of time to ask questions.
All right. Hello, everyone. That's great. I'm very happy to be here, and thank you for inviting us here. My name is Dietrich Schmitz. I'm the Down Payment Assistance Program Administrator with the Washington State Housing Finance Commission. And I'm also, my director is also here, Lisa DeBrock, in case you have any questions that are outside of my scope. But what I was brought in for was to cover really some of the idea of how much it takes for housing subsidy in order for someone to buy a home. Originally, the question was, how much subsidy does it take for someone to purchase a home with 60% area median income in the Spokane area? And from what I've seen, the housing prices in Spokane have been coming up a fair bit rapidly. And so I worked up some numbers, which I'd like to share with you to give you some idea of what I found on that front. And I assume I can just go ahead and share my screen with you guys.
Yeah.
So let's see here. Yeah. All right. Can you see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is the top row of this sheet is based on the area median income for Spokane based on household size at the top. You can see those are the maximum amount that someone can make annually based on household size and be in the 60% area median income range. So my experience comes from prior to working at the commission, I was in the mortgage world, so I'm fairly familiar with what it takes to buy a home. I based this analysis on a $300,000 purchase price, which I've, in researching homes inside the city of Spokane that are in decent enough quality for someone to buy, it's $250 seems near impossible, and $300,000 was a price I worked with where I was able to find some units for sale inside the city. a common convention in terms of housing payment, in terms of how much someone can afford in relationship to their income, is about a maximum of 30% towards housing. And you can see how that works out in this second row that says front-end DTI, which is short for debt-to-income ratio, a term in the mortgage world. And you can see how much someone can afford per month on that second row for a housing payment. So then what I did is I took those numbers and estimated about what the total housing payment would be for someone based on, over here on the right, what I inputted for the purchase price and the subsidy and such. The total housing payment comes out here, and then here in this shortfall or overage, it gives me some idea of comparing the 30% debt-to-income ratio for housing compared to what their housing payment would be. You can see inside the household size of 1, we have a limit of $813, but the housing payment would be $1,066, and that would be a shortfall of $253. Based on that, the subsidy would have to be increased beyond what I have over here of $150,000 in terms of subsidy. Now, when I last adjusted this sheet, I aimed it more for the four-person family household, and of course that includes everyone in the household, including children. And that got me a little closer to a level where the subsidy was maybe a little too much. In this case, the target DPA adjustment was that I was about $20,000 over in terms of down payment assistance. So if I drop the subsidy down to $130,000, that gets a little closer and more in line, and you get a payment of more in the target range of $1,161 being the maximum and $1,162 being the actual housing payment. And you can see if you look at these numbers, I mean, you won't see that many households here on this end, but you will see some sometimes. But depending upon the household size, there is a fair amount of subsidy required to get someone able to buy a home who's at 60% area median income presently in your city. It's the numbers do look a little better if they make more money, if they're between 60 and 80%. But to get someone to a point where they can afford a home at this level does require a fair bit of subsidy, and you could, depending on how you want to approach it and such, I'm not going to so much get into that, but obviously different household sizes would require different levels of subsidy. And again, this is in some ways, this is assuming that they're at the top of the 60% AMI range. And I wanted to just pause there and see if anyone had any questions about that or any clarifications I could do.
Councilmember Kinnear?
Thank you. I want to talk about interest rate for just a minute because 4% seems high right now, and I know it's a snapshot in time. So that's the first question. The second question is there a mechanism whereby I could charge zero interest? In other words, a bank or a lending association that would charge zero or 0.5 minimum amount for a person making that AMI?
Well, with addressing the interest rate, I took 4% in part because looking over the long haul, the interest rates are anticipated to go up. So while I can adjust a sheet like this and come up with an answer for the questions that say 3%, you can see that change the subsidy amount here by maybe about $20,000. As opposed to, so it's at negative 22 and bringing it back up to 4, it gets pretty much close to zero right there. So their interest rate is a part of it, but just the biggest factor in making housing expensive right now is the level of purchase price required. for someone to buy a home. In answer to your question about a low interest rate mortgage, I don't know of any products for first mortgages that exist out there for that. It would, at the end of the day, from what I see in the open market, lenders will require a certain rate of return when doing a first mortgage. And that return does have to come from somewhere. So something has to pay for that, because I don't know of any way to make that money available for free on first mortgages or at interest rates that are very, very out of line with the market.
This is Brian. I had a question on your assumptions for how large of a house you were doing. I was kind of imagining it's kind of a typical single-family house, but one of the strategies we've been working on is getting condominium reform so that we could build more condominiums and things like that, and essentially try to lower that purchase price. It would still be market rate, but I'm just wondering your thoughts about, and we've also looked at changing some design standards within the city in minimum lot sizes and things like that could maybe push that down. So just your thoughts about that.
Sure. Anything that would create cheaper housing inventory is a wonderful thing, because that is the biggest driver of this. As far as condos go, they normally will be below the cost of a single-family residence with, where you have land and it's your own place and you don't have any common walls that you have to share. I don't really know the differential for Spokane comparing single-family residences to condos. The other thing you have to factor in if you're going to look at condos, which my guess would be with a condo, you will find more affordable housing. However, that reduction in purchase price will be slightly offset by the increase because of homeowners association dues on that particular property. Right. So I think anything that can create a greater inventory of starter homes that maybe can remain starter homes in your community over the long haul and not merely be flipped down the road to developers who then go in and build a large-scale home that's more profitable for developers. Anything to retain that base in your community will help out in keeping housing more affordable.
Great.
Does that answer your question?
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right. What other questions?
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, so it looks like based on the size of the down that this is all based on conventional. Do you have numbers for FHA with the PMI and what that looks like? And then also, assuming somebody has poor credit, how that might affect the interest rate as well?
So I don't have numbers handy with FHA, but what I can tell you is that the FHA mortgage insurance, one of the downsides of it is that it's has a minimum time in scenarios like this of at least 11 years, and that's where the MI has to be on it. It's with FHA, you will find that the interest rate does tend to be a bit lower than conventional, but I don't think you're going to see a substantial change in what has to be brought to the table to make a purchase happen. As far as lower credit scores go, FHA is definitely more flexible on that. You generally can get by with a 620 credit score in order to get an FHA loan, and conventional normally has a little bit higher requirements. However, with these scenarios and substantial subsidy that we're looking at, or at least that I ran on this initially, because a lot of them would involve 20% down as the target price, you wouldn't have conventional mortgage insurance involved in it. And so it will change things some, but the big thing that makes the housing expense so great is just the housing price compared to the income that people make. But you would get some adjustments via conventional, and conventional also would be more flexible when you have larger down payments involved. When you only have 3 or 5% down payment involved on conventional, you commonly require a 700 credit score or better, which some folks at lower incomes do have. Just because someone is at lower income doesn't mean their score is lower. But FHA does let you have a kind of a little wider pool as far as people who can make that, who can qualify for that credit-wise.
Well, a few years back when I bought my house, I mean, the only reason I was able to get into it was because of an FHA loan. And at least in the current environment with the rising prices and the ease of gaining equity in the investment, you know, I was able to refinance shortly thereafter, get rid of that mortgage insurance, and really improve that monthly payment. So I think there's other ways maybe to think about some of these loans as well. So just to throw that out there.
Yeah, no, some people will be able to achieve that with the path of FHA loans. The monthly payment is not going to look all that different, but for getting them into just the first step of home ownership, either product can work. And then if they can refinance at some point, that's great. They can get rid of the mortgage insurance. However, in the long haul, I'm not an economist, but I think with the amount of money that was printed in the last year in the U.S., which I think was about 20% of the money supply, I have concerns that interest rates will be going up, so that the result of that, as applies to this, would be that the interest rate that someone gets in the coming year or 2 years, the rates might not be down that low again in the years after, once they've gained equity and could refinance. So they'd have to refinance to a higher rate, which to get rid of the mortgage insurance may or may not be feasible for people.
And that's a great point. I think the Fed had said probably a couple more years we'll be here, but eventually, yeah, those rates are going to have to go up. So,
yeah. Yeah, I've been myself looking at mortgage rates for over 20 years on a daily basis, and they are sure low right now. What other questions do you have? All right. Well, I don't see any, so I'm going to assume that I've given you some information that's helpful here. I'm always happy to answer questions down the road if any of you have any questions that come up, or see what assistance that the commission might be able to help with. We're always open and more than glad to help you guys out in whatever way we can. Thank you so much for your time.
Could you email us this piece of information, or email it to Hanley?
Yes, I will. I will email it to Hanley, and we'll get that over.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much. And so we also have Michelle from Habitat.
All right. Am I able to share?
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you all for allowing me the opportunity to share a little bit about how Habitat makes all of this pencil out. My name is Michelle Gerardo. I'm the CEO at your Habitat for Humanity affiliate here in Spokane County. So housing finance and affordability for buyers and developers. So Habitat is a nonprofit organization that helps families build and improve places to call home. We believe affordable housing plays a critical role in strong and stable communities, and we build strength, stability, and self-reliance through affordable homeownership. So we really look at two indicators of success. One is our ability to access funding for the product that we are aiming to produce. But then on the back end of that is ensuring that a home buyer has access and ability to fund the purchase of that product. So what it costs to build a habitat home or a habitat development includes a number of items. We often try to piece all these things out and say if we can thread one of these needles, then that's the silver bullet and we'll be able to move forward. But I'll break it out a little bit. So the cost of land, infrastructure, construction costs, and at Habitat as a nonprofit with local and national partners, we very much utilize in-kind material donations and labor, allocated costs for our construction staff, soft costs, and all of this put together is our total development cost. One thing that I think is really important is to put together not only the itemized list and receipt of what it costs to build, but also the funding timeline that goes hand in hand with how we are able to pencil this out. And if all the stars align, our funding timeline is about 2 years long. So we spend some time in the pre-development ensuring that this is going to be a product and a development that will be good with and will provide an opportunity for us to be good stewards of those donor dollars. So we partner with the Housing Finance Commission. We raise private donor dollars. We utilize bank financing for that pre-development work. Then once we've completed that, we look to acquire either a rehab acquisition project within the city limits or acquisition of a site to complete a new construction development. Usually those funds include city development block grant dollars, private donor dollars, bank financing, and HUD funds. Once we have that completed, then we can start construction, which also costs funding. So that interim financing funds to be used during construction would include construction loans, housing trust fund dollars, private donor dollars. And then finally, at the completion and once we get certificate of occupancy, we would close on those homes with a partner, individual, or family in our program. We're seeing that closings are, especially with layered financing, when we talk about those down payment assistance dollars and those subsidies, it takes about 90 plus days to complete a closing. And generally those funds received are bank financing with a first mortgage with one of our preferred lending partners, Federal Home Loan Bank subsidy dollars, down payment assistance dollars, or home funds. And once we close, those funds go into a revolving loan fund, so then we start this process all over again so we can continue our efforts. The funding applications generally open in spring and summer, and the awards are announced in winter. So all of the timing for all those funding applications, we really need to make sure that those stars align so we can move forward on a project. I broke out two possible scenarios, a new construction home of 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, and a rehab acquisition unit, 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom. And you'll notice that the total cost for both of these is lower than the average within our city limits, and that's primarily because of our partnerships with donors for the material and the labor. So we can see that none of these, especially 2 years ago, I mean, this is still a pretty significant jump. So, you know, for a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, and 2-bedroom or 2-bathroom, 3-bedroom unit of 12, we're looking at over $3 million for just 12 units. So on the other end of that, in working with the home buyers to ensure that they are adequately prepared for purchasing the home, we partner with families and individuals earning 80% of the area median income. Generally, just as we're starting our pre-development, so is the home buyer on their journey to become successful homeowners. That takes about a year to a year and a half to become financially healthy and home buyer ready. We know that these home buyers may have experienced some barriers in accessing credit. So this will allow us to prepare them to access that down payment assistance that they will most certainly need when they come to close on their home. We rebuild safe, decent, and affordable homes that meet the needs of the family. So if the household size is a family of 4, then it's generally a 2 to 3 bedroom home. We provide ADA accessibility, universal step. In return, partner families purchase their home from Habitat, paying no more than 30% of their income towards their monthly mortgage payments. And their mortgage payments, repaid subsidy, or DPA goes into a revolving fund to build more safe, decent, and affordable homes. Habitat Homes, while we have been able to partner with a number of donors and sponsors, that doesn't mean that the home that we're completing is a cheaply created home. All of these homes are high quality, energy efficient, to really ensure that the lifetime of the home is affordable, including those future maintenance costs. So if we kind of look at the financing for a home buyer, I just pulled some numbers on, a family of 4 that's earning 40% of the area median income. So if we ballpark that at, just below $15 an hour, this is kind of the range that we can look at as what it would cost to complete a unit, somewhere between, $218,000 to $240,000 for a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom unit. We provide private donor dollar subsidy. We tack on down payment assistance from our various partners, additional down payment assistance from, programs like our shared equity program with the city of Spokane. This one, I didn't count HOA dues. I was looking at a rehab acquisition project. So we can see that the total subsidy amount is significant. So it's not going to take just one entity to make this work. It's going to take everybody to make the financing appropriate for the family. But the beauty is that those dollars that we do receive at the beginning, or right when they close, we're able to push that right towards the next project. So this is very, very affordable. So we're looking at, less than $700 in a monthly payment with taxes and escrow at $250. I have a slightly lower interest rate here because some of our preferred lending partners have agreed to lower those interest rates, but obviously that's not going to be the case for every affordable homeownership provider. Any questions?
Hi, Michelle, it's Karen.
Hey, Karen.
I'm just curious, how many projects, just top of your head, have we done in like West Central area neighborhood and East Central?
So, of the rehab acquisition projects?
Yes, I'm sorry, yes.
Sure. So there are 7 in West Central. Habitat's completed 14 new construction units in West Central ages ago. So we're slated at between 7 to 9 in West Central, at least hopefully completed by the end of this year. And the acquisition of each one of those units, we were lucky to sneak in right before the market really started moving in the other direction.
And what about East Central? Any ideas?
So we have done 51 new construction units in East Central, and we've done 11 or 12 kind of critical home repair, major rehabs that were owner occupied between, 2014 and 2016.
Okay.
But it was a heck of a lot cheaper to do it then.
Exactly, and I look at some of the neighborhoods where we still have a lot of those homes that I would think there'd be good partnerships with the homes that just need to be cleaned up or rebuilt or, like we did the one that I came to visit on the opening. I mean, that was, and Habitat did such amazing work on that home. You would have never known that it had been in disrepair. I mean, they do a great job. So I'd like to see more of that if we could do it.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll see you next week, right?
You will see
We've got
me next
something on the calendar.
week. Yes, you will.
Awesome. Any other questions?
Michelle, it's Brian. The actual work, whether you're doing new construction or rehabilitating, do you have your own employees and crews, or do you subcontract out? How does that work?
So we sub out electrical and plumbing, and really for this past year, we've had to work in partnership with a number of subs. Many of them have donated their time and their treasure to make it work. But pre-pandemic, we enjoyed over 10,000 volunteers annually. So we heavily rely on not only the sweat equity of the families that are completing their hours on their homes and their neighbors' homes, but also the community.
What we're hoping to do as a city is to scale up production under this kind of model. So I guess I'm just wondering, I'm imagine you can only add that volunteer sweat equity up to a certain point, and then we have to figure out how to do it just with the open market. So give us some thoughts on that.
And I'd also say, Brian, a big component of that is prevailing wage. Mm-hmm. So the figures that I provided, that's without prevailing wage, because we rely on those volunteer numbers. But if you were to, and also these are by and large single family. If we were doing condominiums, which I certainly hope that will be pushed this year, that would make a huge dent in making this much more feasible.
But Council President, just to add to what you're thinking, there's some partnerships out there. Michelle, I'm sure you've done this before, but I'll mention it, with some of these apprenticeship programs that are out. The AGC, I've used them in a couple neighborhood projects that needed to be done. But, those would be some good folks to sit down when we start looking at this to see where we can put those apprentices to work and see how often we can do it.
Well, to that point, we have a labor shortage right now. And if we aren't looking at this as not just a housing shortage, but tying into that labor shortage, I mean, it's hard to find subs that are willing to, do this at an affordable rate because the demand is so high. So investing in apprenticeship programs is huge. I mean, we wouldn't be able to do what we do without ESC 101, without, the AGC apprenticeship program. I mean, that's seriously our bread and butter. Mr. Cathcart?
Yeah, thank you. Just wondering, can you speak to what the impact of the most recently adopted energy code has been on your costs, and also if you feel that there is adequate or plentiful land to build on inside the city for you guys?
So for your first question, we certainly had some concerns with the energy code, primarily because the efforts that we're doing on the east side of the state do not mimic those of an urban setting on the west side. And so there's been that tacks on a significant amount of cost, which then we pass on to the home buyer. And if our homeowners are only earning, under 80%, it is very difficult. But there are some items in the energy code that we very much appreciate in order to keep the life cycle of the home safe, decent, healthy, and affordable. Air sealing is really huge for us. It's very expensive if you're subbing that out, but if you're using volunteers, it's a very easy product for us to deploy. But we also want to make sure that homeowners and home buyers aren't going to be spending, $200 and $300 in utility bills every month. So I think that there's got to be some balance there. However, on the, remind me of your second question.
Land supply.
Land supply. So within the city limits, I think there's two arguments. One is we need the infill. We need to make sure that we can increase that density and change some zoning so we can increase that housing stock. But there's pluses and minuses. 2 years ago, I would say that, rehab acquisition is too expensive. But now as we're seeing new construction, lumber prices have skyrocketed. Now it's a much more affordable option. Not to mention the moral side of, the number of empty and blighted units that our community is seeing and the cost of that on the communities. It's definitely a moral imperative to try to breathe life into those units.
One last question. Your rehab projects, how many units are you creating that weren't there before, I guess, on average, when you do a rehab project? Is it just a single family to a single family? Okay, so we're not actually getting new units. We're just improving the quality of existing units.
Correct.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, improving the quality of existing units that may not have been lived in for a decade, that may have been embroiled in a number of liens, blight, crime.
Gotcha. That's great. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Just I got one more. Kind of going into that. So seems like we have a lot of empty homes that are run down, and so we've talked a little bit. We've danced around a little bit over the last year and a half of asking administration staff to come up with a program where we could use eminent domain to buy those bank from banks. Would that be helpful if there was a bigger supply of vacant bank-owned that weren't on the market coming back into the market? The city would buy them, put them in our land bank, and then sell them to you and some more providers. Would that be helpful?
Yes, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, we're seeing that a unit hits the market and you've got 70 offers on it with, $40,000 over asking price. Absolutely. And that would also provide some control where we know that it's actually going toward community good and not, an outside buyer that may not have the same, priorities for maintaining community integrity and reducing displacement. Yep, so thumbs up on that for sure. Anything else?
No.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate all of you, and thanks for letting me share a little bit of what we've been trying to pencil out.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you. And last up, we have Isaiah Payne from the Home Builders to give us some information about the cost.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for having me. I'm a late fill-in, to be transparent, so I apologize in advance if I jump all over the place. As you've already started to hear, there are a lot of different issues, and they're varied. But I think the thing that I'd like to just add to the conversation is that we believe the most significant thing we can do is to increase housing supply. A lot of what's driving this cost is a lack of supply. That's both on the land side and on the housing stock side. And so certainly that's from an entire market perspective, that's what we see we need. There have been some studies suggesting that we're significantly underbuilt already, and now we see a whole lot of people. We're on the I'm sure you all have seen on the top of the list for cities that people are moving into, or at least areas people are moving into. And so if we're underbuilt and we need more supply, that requires new housing. And part of the issue that we're starting to see and what's driving up costs even more is a lot of regulation being added. So there are a number of different things in the legislature right now that are putting affordable, attainable new construction at risk. We really can't make housing more affordable by making it more expensive. And there are a lot of things that would add to the regulatory cost. Councilmember Cathcart brought up the energy codes. Our estimate from builders, and it does vary, but $20,000 to $30,000 in the cost of a home overnight from January 31st to February 1st. Now, it's not to say that those are that it's a bad goal or anything like that, but especially in the timing of our market, that add of $20,000, we think that we need to ask some serious questions about, is this actually achieving our goal? And what are we getting out of this? I know at least one builder in the region is now adding solar panels standard to every new residential construction. That's a choice being made for consumers by the legislature that's at a high cost. And so should we be protecting some, consumer choice there? How do we weigh these things out? How is this affecting home ownership? For every $1,000 in costs that we add, we know that families in Spokane, 221 people no longer can afford to purchase a home for every $1,000 in cost. And so I think the question that we need to ask ourselves is this important enough that we're going to look thousands of people in the face and say, sorry, this is more important than you owning a home. You don't deserve the opportunity to own a home because we care about these things more. I know maybe that's a little heavy-handed, but I do think that is really the conversation internally that we need to be processing, and what do we really value. From our perspective, we value home ownership. There are all sorts of socioeconomic markers that go up with home ownership. We think that people are buying more into community, have that stability, are there for a duration of time. These are all individual and community benefits that we want to push towards. I do want to share briefly, if I can. Hopefully this pops up for you. Great, and I'm actually going to start here. So this is something that I put together last fall. Perhaps some of you have seen this. I think I shared it in a forum that many or all of you were on before. But just looking at the current market, so again, this is October of 2020, but these numbers are roughly still the same. So the new construction home price is about $400,000, and you can see this breakdown of about what that costs. 50% of that is direct cost, so that's supplies. I know there's been some comments about lumber. Lumber is about almost triple what it was pre-pandemic. So it's certainly a cost that, when you're looking at a planned net profit of 6%, there are a number of homes that are being built, and the builder is not making money on these because lumber prices increased. And so that sort of variability, hopefully, is just an example of how one thing in this process can change, and all of a sudden, it doesn't really pencil anymore. You can see in there the energy code, permit impact fees that affect that. Land cost is at 20%, which is the percentage that we want in the model. But again, as you've already heard, $400,000 is out of reach for many folks in Spokane. You can see the indirect cost, what's planned for, that's internal for the builder to be able to do project management, plan design, the sales commission, marketing, all of those pieces. And then you see a net profit of 6%. I think one helpful thing to keep in mind, we historically hear about restaurants and how difficult it is to make it in the restaurant business. Restaurants typically operate on an 8 to 12% profit. So yes, we're dealing with larger number of dollars in a single home sale, but there is a lot of risk that you can see that's exemplified by the lumber prices, and it's really not this exorbitant profit margin that I think many people assume that it is. It's just not the case. I want to compare that then to the industry standard model. So again, coming from a supply perspective, but we asked ourselves, how much could a median income, so 100% AMI, how much could they afford? Again, we looked at that great Excel sheet, so it does depend on interest rates and different things, but this is based on a 4% interest rate, which is kind of that industry standard. Someone making $51,667, which is median income, can afford $253,000 home price. So lower interest rates, maybe you can bump that up to $270, but again, we know that at that price point, there's very little on the market. I think one of the nuances too, if you are engaging in something like an FHA loan, there are certain requirements as far as the quality of the home and different components that need to be present, and a number of additional standards, which are good standards, but many of the homes that are in this $250,000 to $300,000 or $300,000 range on the market don't meet those specifications for an FHA loan. And so there are a lot of, problematic nuances. I think the biggest thing that I would like to point out here is that land cost being at 20%, if we want a home to be attainable for median income, people to work and live in Spokane, that land cost target is a lot closer to $50,000. I think in the Habitat for Humanity model, they're trying to get it for $40,000, which is working with their partners to be able to do that. But if we're looking at a market rate perspective, to build a home at $250,000 to $270,000, the land price really needs to be closer to $50,000. And like you saw in the earlier chart, it's closer to $80,000 now. So that's one of the things that we need to work through as an industry and as policymakers. What can we do to affect the cost of land? Is there anything that we can do? I hope that our solution isn't just throw up our hands and people don't get to afford to buy a home. I really hope that there are ways that we can address this. And I do think there are some smart solutions that that we can do when we look at putting more units on land, shrinking some of those lot sizes and some of those requirements that exist in the city. Right now, there's just no recourse, no opportunity to do that. We think at least building in a mechanism that builders could engage in and bring a proposal that could be considered. Right now, it's just not allowed. And so that is one example of something that we think would be helpful in this process. So really, what we are looking at is kind of this, 80 to 120% AMI, what we call the missing middle, because this really does affect both ends of the spectrum. When there aren't any homes in that range, that means more people are in apartments, and that drives up the rental market to make it even more difficult for everyone who's competing for those same units. You're seeing really low rates of openings even at that level as well. And also, if there aren't these middle homes, these starter homes, if you will, for folks, then they're not able to, housing is this ladder, and there are different steps in that process. But if you're not getting that initial foray into the market, you're not able to refinance like Mr. Cathcart was able to, or you're not able to build that equity to allow you to live in a size of home that maybe your family needs. And so different allowances for different housing types, for lot sizes. I know there's some, ADU proposals that are out there, maybe adjusting short plat fee structure. I do think there are a number of proposals that we certainly support that would address this kind of from a market-wide perspective, the things that we could begin to affect. So, like I said, energy code, lumber prices, supply chain issues, land prices have roughly doubled in the last couple of years. All that's pricing folks out, and we really think that the opportunity to own a home is something that we should protect, and that means we really need to get to work doing that. So I would, if there are any other questions, I could probably go off on a few more tangents, but really that's the key thing that we want to be focusing on right now. Mr. Cathcart?
Yeah, Isaiah, could you speak a little bit to just the current situation with where development is occurring in the region, kind of the permitting situation, kind of where Spokane is amongst the area?
Yeah, I mean, from a broad region perspective, looking at some of the units permitted data. So we put together a chart I'd love to share with all of you, but looking at historical data from both Spokane, Coeur d'Alene area. And, we saw more units permitted in Kootenai County than Spokane County in 2020. In fact, the city of Post Falls permitted as many units in 2020 as the city of Spokane and the county of Spokane combined. We're looking at that and we're asking some questions. In fact, we're going to be having a panel discussion with some of our developers to kind of get that information out, and would love to share that with you once that is done. But we have to ask ourselves, well, why is this happening? Boeing didn't relocate to Post Falls. Amazon didn't relocate to Post Falls. The economic development there isn't what's driving this. We think most of these folks would live in Spokane given the opportunity, but they just don't have that opportunity. The costs are roughly the same. I know there's some arguments out there about maybe it's a political choice, wanting to live in Idaho versus Washington. I think that's anecdotal. I haven't seen a survey study that suggests that's actually the case. But what we do know, whether that's the case or not, these folks are mostly working in Spokane, which means they're traveling on I-90, they're using city amenities, they're using roads, but they're not contributing to the tax base. Their property taxes are in Idaho. Their gas tax is in Idaho. Their sales tax and where they go out to eat and shop is likely where they live. And so I think we have to ask ourselves some real questions about why is this shift happening, and if most of these folks are working in Spokane and traveling to Spokane on a very regular basis, what's the cost of that to our community? And are there things that might need to change here regionally, not just in the city of Spokane, but in the surrounding regions that would allow those people to be a part of this community and be contributors to the community, not just using those resources, but not paying back into it. So, yeah, Councilmember Stratton. Oh, I think you're on mute. The quote of the year.
So on the shift to Idaho that you just talked about,
Yeah.
do you know, were those projects or those construction projects of new homes, how many of those or what percentage were considered affordable? Were they all affordable within that 51,000?
Yeah.
Looking at the income, or were they higher level houses, higher end? Do you have any idea?
I don't specifically. So the information I pulled was permit data. And so remember as well that if a unit is permitted, it's typically we're looking at a 6-month window right now. So a lot of that is actually future casting data. Those units, a lot of them are being built right now and haven't been put up for sale. And so some of that data is, not available. What is available, and I'm digging into it now, I don't have it, but single family versus multifamily, I mean, that is part of the permit application. And so that is something that could be evaluated and looking at that too. And I think that'd be a helpful component to the discussion, what type of housing it is. As far as the cost, I would have to get back to you. I'm not sure I can see it through, the avenue that's readily available to me, but it's an excellent question and something, certainly would be helpful to add to the context of the discussion.
That would be great. Anytime we can get that information, I know I would like to see, as far as affordability.
Yeah.
I think that's what we need to know.
I do know if you look at the MLS, I mean, the home prices are very similar to Spokane. But, it's a little bit different metric. So I certainly hear what you're asking.
Mr. Payne at Greenbags, I did see in the Spokesman a few weeks ago, they had the comparison of prices. They were substantially higher in Kootenai County. I mean, 150, 200,000 median price. So I don't have those specific data, but I would imagine. But my question on that is, in terms of where that housing's being built, if you know, is it more of greenfields kind of construction or is it infill? Because my suspicion is they have a lot more open land, and our builders locally are used to a business model of greenfields instead of infill. I'm just wondering if you would kind of agree with that.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. It is a lot more greenfield. There are larger developments, production builders, would be, who's doing a large number of those units. So yeah, it's a fair question. Do we just let that happen over there? Do we try to find some opportunities in the Spokane? It's more of a regional conversation, certainly, than perhaps at the city of Spokane. There's not a whole lot. We do know that the last land quality analysis or quantity analysis was done in 2016, and so we'd like to see kind of it hasn't been maintained, right? So an ongoing land bank, knowledge about the amount of buildable lands. I know there's some land that I think was considered buildable that might go into conservatory, which again isn't a bad thing, but how does this affect the amount of buildable lands that we have? And having a consistently updated metric, I think is really going to help our evaluation of the decisions that need to be made. And I think it's crucial data that we think that needs to be part of the conversation that doesn't seem to exist very accurately at the moment.
Yeah, well, Mr. Cathcart and I were in the committee trying to get an update a few years ago in different roles. But so my question is, so in the last few years in Spokane, we've increased the amount of land available for residential multifamily by 50% capacity within the city. And we've also increased a lot of infill capacity in a quarter mile of centers and corridors. So in single family residential, but pocket development. So we've changed a lot of those regulations. We've made it easier to do ADUs, but we haven't really seen an uptake from the building community to take advantage of that yet. And my question from you, especially from your perspective, is what's it going to take? What kind of joint education and work can we do with your builders who are more greenfield builders, mass production? How do we figure out how to adjust their model for Spokane? Because again, the city of Spokane is never going to have greenfields like they do in Post Falls and things like that. But we do have a lot more capacity, and right now we're considering even more of that capacity. But my fear is it's not going to help much for Spokane prices unless the building industry adapts to infill and those kinds of things. So I'm just wondering your thoughts from a home builder of how do we bring existing home builders into new business models that will be profitable for them, but adapts to the actual situation in Spokane.
Yeah, it's certainly a big question. There are a number of members of Spokane Home Builders. We cover 7 different counties. We have over 730 members. Not all of those are just builders. We have a number of folks, anything related to the housing industry. So we do have a broad scope of folks who are, building single family, but who are also doing multifamily projects. And so that's certainly, something our membership can speak to. A lot of this it just comes down to does it pencil out? I think you've seen that in the last 2 presentations as well. Some of these areas, the cost of land going up, having the landowner being willing to sell that property as a prerequisite, and so there are a lot of opportunities for infill, but I think as a philosophical point, there's a difference between trying to tell development where to go and allowing for development where it happens. The Kendall Yards project, we think is a great example. That's not part of the centers and corridors. Now I know there's a lot of nuance that went into that development over the years, but making that more open, it doesn't mean we have to have a free-for-all, but a process to to be able to consider some of those projects and restricting it to certain areas doesn't seem to be fruitful. And so, like the PUD process has gotten more restrictive. A lot of the things that enabled Kendall Yards to happen, Kendall Yards might not be possible if they got started 2 years ago. And so, we need to look at a lot of the regulation, even infill where we say, well, it has to be this, a similar lot size to the other, other housing in the area. So you have an open lot on the South Hill, and instead of being able to put in 2 homes at 250 to 300,000, you're forced to put one home in for 500,000. And so what is a large, 7,200 square foot lot that might be able to be subdivided, and even though zoning codes allow for lots to be 4,000 square feet, we're not going to get that economically diverse housing and those opportunities within communities where people want to live. I mean, this isn't just a question about are developers willing to build it, but are buyers willing to live in those structures? And we have these more we have places where there's more demand, but we're not willing to put density there. And so I think these are questions that we need to look at. Like as I mentioned, this fee and process for a short plat is a barrier to infill development as well. So encouraging large, oversized, and underutilized residential lots to be subdivided is a simple process, but it's costly, and it doesn't seem to match the work required. And so this burden seems to be something that is more rooted in, again, not making it not pencil intentionally. So yeah, I mean, I think I have a list of code development issues that I'd love to share. I think you've probably seen it. The gentleman who I'm filling in for today, Mr. Jim Frank, has put that together, and I know you've likely seen many of those. But if we want more housing types, if we want multiple types of housing within the same development, these code changes can help show that is a good thing and is desirable. When we're saying like, hey, you can't do that in this area of town, but you can in that area of town, we think these are things that are keeping people out of the market, keeping people from home ownership, which we think is problematic.
Cupid?
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that, Isaiah. And I kind of want to reframe part of this conversation to get the council back to the purpose of this meeting, was to hear from multiple perspectives the difference between subsidizing housing and housing affordability, understanding the capital markets and the incentives that create the price points that people here can afford, what the developers from different parts of the community are thinking about, how planning and code enforcement and the development services goes into the actual capital stacking that they have to do when they're trying to determine how much it costs to build in our environment, and the decisions that you all will have to make, because there are several points that you all have direct influence over. Some of it is going to be policy, some of it is going to be incentivizing, and some of it is going to be investments. And so I think that hearing from the multiple perspectives on how much at 60%, which is important because a funding resource that we have can only be used at 60% or lower, how much affordability is, which is what Michelle was talking about, which is up to 80%, but that's not direct oversight with the financial resource we have, which is critical. What Isaiah was talking about, which is 80 to 120, which is not only the housing type, but the affordability level and the tools that we have for the types of communities that we want to see, because some of our deliverables are different than what our industry partners have, and how we can create and incentivize or at least allow for the types of development that we would like to see in this community, knowing that in a regional conversation where maybe density is not received the same way, what would we like to do, and how are you going to sequence your conversations on the resources that you have, and also taking into consideration, and I know Melissa had set this up, how much it costs for multifamily housing, and then what is the need that we're trying to meet, knowing what the projections for this community are, so we can have what's called a smart growth conversation about what development in this lived space looks like, and actually develop the types of communities we'd like to see. So, I just wanted to be sure that we're sure what we're talking about, and we're kind of reframing it where we wanted 3 different perspectives specifically so we could holistically understand where we're at in the city of Spokane.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Councilmember Kinnear.
Yeah, Councilmember Kinnear. I don't know if it's a question for me, but I'll give you the floor.
If I could put my computer down and stand up and cheer for Cupid, I would. So I'm cheering for you, Cupid, right now. You make some excellent points. And I want to go back to what Council President said as well. We do have things in place that can be used, and we have to create another different mindset about how we look at land use. We have opportunities right now with our central city line, we're calling it a city line going in, and those hubs, those nodes that are going to be so advantageous for developers. And we recently got $50 million for the Division corridor and I don't know how many of you have driven along Division recently, but it's one empty strip mall after another, and the actual Northtown Mall is, I mean, you could do bowling or shoot a cannon in that space and nobody would notice. We have opportunities coming up that we need to identify and take advantage of, and not just look at what we've done in the past to inform our future. So thank you, Cupid, for what you said, and Council President, thank you. So I'm off my soapbox now. Thanks, everyone.
And I'm going to jump back on my soapbox just for a moment. But I really appreciate the conversation as well, Mr. Payne. I guess I just want to emphasize all the things that you talked about as far as development codes and things like that could support more density, that might change. You know, I'm totally with you probably personally on most of those. But I just wanted to point out that we are doing Kendall Yards Part 2 at the Garden Springs project at 29th and Southeast. So the code certainly supports that. We've increased the areas where density could come in, and we still haven't gotten the buy-in from the builders yet. So what I really want to propose beyond today is that hopefully we could do some type of joint education program with the city and builders who know how to do infill, like Mr. Frank and that, with your membership. So it's not like the city telling them how to do it. It's basically saying, no, this is how you can make money. Because given the huge rise in home prices, there is money to be made in infill as well as greenfield. It's just that we have to figure out how to bridge some of those gaps. And some of that's just knowledge of the builders, and some of that are things in our code, as you mentioned, and we're aware and we're considering, and I think we'll be considering more. So that's really what I want to get to, is beyond the philosophical of like, hey, let's just figure out how builders can make money in Spokane with our land conditions, which are completely different, but wide open and strong market demand, so the price can be built into it. And then I want to just do a quick little thing about the energy code, and that is the purpose of the energy code isn't so much to do climate change, it's to make it affordable for owners long term. That $20,000 that you put in, when I talk to McKinstry, who are expert developers on energy, they say you will save far more, multiple times of that over the length of the ownership of that building. And whether someone's paying a mortgage payment or paying utility bills, it's the same dent into their income. And so a lot of those energy codes are really to save more money for those homeowners over time. But the challenge is, as you mentioned, you're buying that down on the front end. And so it is so I think the burden is not to stop doing energy code, because we'll save money for consumers, not to mention climate issues, but we have to figure out how to finance that upfront purchase that's going to save them money down the road. So I will get off my soapbox now.
Yeah, if I may, and it's a big tangent conversation, so maybe it's offline here, but that's historically been the case with the energy code. That's the intent of the energy code. But there are additional carbon emission, standards that are being included in the energy code. So it's not just about energy efficiency. We actually did a panel with Avista talking about how this actually means higher utility costs for folks. And so, yes, we agree on the principle of why these energy codes exist, but really there has been a fundamental shift in the energy code that is increasing costs as opposed to trying to bring them down. And so some of that has to do with natural gas. If natural gas gets banned, you're going to be paying double in your utility costs in the next 10 years.
But that's not in the energy. That's not in the energy code right now. I just want to not paint too broad a brush on the energy code. I agree with you. We should do specifics and have that debate. So.
Yeah.
Council President, I just want to, I think this is a great conversation. I kind of want to refocus this group, and I think for the purpose of why we brought Dietrich and why we brought Isaiah and why we brought Michelle is so everyone understands the capital stack. When you're looking at development and you're looking at how much it costs and what investments that we have, we understand that some of our partners who are in the market-based side have what's called a cap rate, how much they have to make for something to pencil out when they're, who's going to carry the risk. And I think as we think about how we want to have a lived environment, and I'm going to call out Councilmember Wilkerson around like even Fifth Avenue Initiative, there are some things where we're going to have to decide how we're going to invest, which is why when we're talking to Dietrich around Washington State Housing Finance, they have a down payment assistance loan that might work well with some of the products we have to increase what we'd like to see. And then when we're talking to Isaiah, that might be something where it's like, if we want to see certain things, what negotiation points do we have around what we would like to see? And then when we're talking to Michelle, it might be another different suite of tools that we have to help incentivize what we'd like to see. So I kind of want to reframe it to understand, to make sure we're getting what everyone is saying is like, for the different deliverables that we would like to see, there are costs associated, and if we'd like to fill in certain gaps, what are we going to do to incentivize what we would like to see, knowing that they're looking at things regionally, and their deliverables are going to be different than what we would like to see sometimes. And, you know, what we find as success might be holistic neighborhood walkability, and that's why we have certain requirements, and then they're just going to indicate, quite frankly, why they can either build there or why it's going to be difficult, knowing that when you start showing up, and I'm glad Isaiah mentioned this, when we start showing up on lists of top 10s, there's a global demand to park their capital here, and if we're not matching that with what people can afford, not only will the displacement happen because you're in a market economy, we're not stabilizing in place. And that's what happened to other cities in this region. And I'm hoping that we have a true conversation about how we can scale up what's in our toolbox so we can help create new opportunities while stabilizing our current community and creating onboards for new owners. And sometimes that's going to be a conversation about FAR, how high and how much space you need to build. And if we incentivize that, maybe we're not there yet, but I think we're starting to have the conversations we need to, which is understanding what it costs in the built environment right now, so you all can lead us down the path towards what our best and brightest decision could be. So making sure I reframe that so we can capture like what the purpose of this is.
Just a quick comment, Cupid. I really appreciate your comments, and I think it'd be great at some point in time if we could end up having some sort of roundtable with multiple builders and yourself and talk in depth about a lot of these issues. I think, you know, you're quite knowledgeable, and it'd be great to have your expertise at the table and have a really good, robust conversation about all things development and really start to dive deep into this issue.
I think we will. So what Melissa and I have been framing up with the leadership from Council President is to get an understanding of just how much it costs for the different deliverables we would like to see. Some is going to be affordable, some is going to be subsidized, and some is going to be market rate. That requires different things that we can do. I'm agnostic, and I'm so happy to be in the space that I'm in now versus working for like a mayor where I had to lead the policy. I can only present, but the decision, and it's going to be hard decisions, are going to have to be made by you all around what you would like to see in reframing what the deliverables are. Like the Council President brings up clean energy and energy goals, and over the life cycle cost, that makes something more affordable. But the front-end investment, it makes it more expensive right now. And that's a reality that keeps people out of housing in some situations, knowing that what we're measuring is the risk and who carries it. Like the hard thing about getting housing finance for low-income individuals is no one's willing to carry the risk unless there's less risk to carry, knowing that the capital costs are the same. And it depends on the land cost. So we're trying to figure out where we have opportunities. And I have complete confidence, but we're going to have some hard conversations, and we're happy to frame that out. And it's going to lead to what all of these individuals on this call are saying, what type of environment we want to live in, what we're willing to give up, what we're willing to change, and how much money do we have to invest or possibly lose to see the type of city that we're in. And what I see as the opportunity is to create a strong framework that not only lasts for now, but what does it want to look like in 10, 15, 20 years? Because our comprehensive planning documents request that also. And when we're positioned to grow, what does that mean for the community who's here now? And I think there's a little bit of dog whistle politics here, and you all know this better than I do, which is when we start to talk about infill building and kind of changing some of the built environment around these beautiful brick buildings, or if they go away, people start saying, hey, the city is doing something that doesn't include me, and Spokane is changing, which is why we have to change it to more of a smart growth conversation. So I think we're having the conversation we need to have, which is what's in our toolbox? Do we need to develop new tools? Do you know how that tool is used? What do our other partners use as a tool? And what type of city we would like to see? And I know we're running out of time, so this is just the beginning, and we kind of have to build the airplane while it's flying, and that's just the world we live in. But I think the goal is a sustainable community that we can scale up in a very smart way, to have very smart moves that allow different entry points, and what are we willing to negotiate over? And that'll be up to you all and the mayor. Like, what are we saying yes to, and what are we saying no to that align with our goals? And some of it is going to be like, hey, the market is there, we're not going to influence the market. Some is going to say, hey, we are going to have to subsidize some things, and some is going to be, it's affordable because we created affordability, because we moved them up, and I'm Isaiah, I'll have to talk to you offline. We're trying to figure out with the development code, what if we're able to move things up ahead, so you're not waiting to go through the development queue because you're producing something we would like to see, which saves money, but it doesn't cost us anything. It might ruffle our partners' feathers, but it will say, we move these projects ahead so someone's not carrying the cost, because it costs developers to do that because of what you're delivering. And maybe it's 80 to 120. And that would be, so you pass that on to first-time home buyers and things like that. So just wanted to say, I think we're at where we're at. These are the right questions. We probably need to ask ourselves even harder questions because we want to create something sustainable.
I also want to join Councilmember Kinnear in commending, and Cathcart commending Cupid for keeping us on track and working with Melissa to bring us this conversation. It's really helpful. I have two takeaways. One, the 60% AMI rule that's attached to the 1590 money is a challenge if we want to get to ownership. It's really challenging, and that became very clear, so that's helpful. One thing we could do is go to the legislature and get them to raise it to 80%. So we have some pretty good ties there. But it's really challenging because it really almost pushes us into using 1590 to create long-term rentals, which I'm not excited about yet, because I think the best anti-displacement policy for our current neighborhoods is ownership interest in that. That is what's going to save people living in the neighborhoods that they're used to doing in. So I really appreciate, again, challenging questions, as Cupid says, more to come. So we'll be doing this, regularly into the future to really dig into it so people understand when we get down to actually approving criteria for spending the money. And we also, I'd be remiss if not noting that soon we're going to stop calling it 1590 because council has started. I think Councilmember Kinnear, give us your one again. I thought so far you had the winner for me. What was your program?
And Cupid already gave it his blessing.
Oh.
It is Spokane Housing Opportunity Program, and the acronym is SHOP.
Okay. All right. Excellent. All right. Well, I think we're over time. This is probably the most engaging study session I've been to for a while. So I think we'll continue on this topic so that we're engaged. Did anyone have anything else that they wanted to say or question? Not seeing anyone. With that, I really want to thank all our panelists and speakers for your engagement now and for the promise to continue to engage with us going forward. Everyone have a great day. We're adjourned. We are off next week. No study session, no council meetings. Be productive, take care of yourself, and if you can, take care of somebody else. Good afternoon.